Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? Because that's what happens when your name is whispered with failure. Because in a place built on ego and endurance, silence becomes a weapon too. Orange light spilled across the dive bar near the San Diego base, the kind of place that smelled like salt, smoke, and lost time. A cracked pool table sat in the middle, neon beer signs buzzed above a row of half-empty bottles, and a group of Navy SEALs were already too drunk to notice the world beyond their laughter. Their voices filled the room like small explosions. And in the corner, sitting alone, was the woman they once called dead weight. Lieutenant Cara Bishop, 29 years old, the first woman approved for SEAL training. Now just a ghost in a logistics uniform. She sat with her back to the wall, beer untouched, ponytail tight, hands folded in quiet discipline. Her eyes flicked to the mirror behind the bar, not for vanity, for surveillance. She learned to see without looking, learned to count exits, to note shadows, to measure threat in tone rather than words. A beer can clattered across the floor, rolled until it hit her boot. The laughter grew louder. "Hey," one of them shouted. "AI that the one who failed Bud S., the dead weight." She didn't move, didn't blink, just a slow breath in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, her therapist's rhythm, the one that kept the ghosts from screaming when she closed her eyes. They called her dead weight. But that night, in the only bar with working security cameras, they would learn that some warriors don't need a team to survive. The jukebox clicked through tracks, an old country song about leaving home, about being misunderstood. Fitting. Cara's gaze stayed low, but behind the calm her mind wasn't still. It was tactical, clinical, calculating. 8 of them. All trained. All drunk. The math wasn't impossible, just inconvenient. She remembered another kind of light, the sharp blue of the training pool under floodlamps, the sound of instructors shouting through megaphones, her body convulsing underwater during drown-proofing, her wrists tied, her lungs begging for air. The memory hit like cold metal. They pulled her up, declared her unfit. Too controlled, they said, too calm, not normal. Then came the whispers, the jokes, the label. The girl SEAL. The one who washed out. Now she labeled ammunition crates and signed inventory sheets. Watched men go on missions she'd been trained to lead. And every day she told herself it was fine. That she didn't need to prove anything. That she'd made peace with being invisible. But peace isn't silence, it's a weight, and sometimes it cracks. She sipped her beer, the taste of metal, the sound of boots scraping closer. The tall one, Rodriguez, smirked as he leaned over her table. "Well, look who it is. Bishop, the backpack we had to carry through Hell Week." His voice was soaked in alcohol and arrogance. Laughter followed like gunfire. Another voice joined, deeper, meaner. "Thought they sent you home, sweetheart. What are you doing here, hiding from clipboards?" The table shook as they slammed their glasses. Foam spilled, pooling between ashtrays and broken pride. Cara's reflection stared back at her from the mirror, expressionless, still. Her jaw moved once, the faintest clench. She didn't look up, didn't answer. Counting, breathing. 4 in, hold 4 out. Her eyes mapped the room. Doorway 12 feet clear. Bartender frozen mid-pour. Lighting dim, red flicker from neon. Floor wet near the bar. Obstacles, chairs, stools, one broken table leg on the ground. Davidson, 6'2", heavy shoulders, stance unstable. Rodriguez closer, dominant hand left, weapon on belt but jacket zipped. Others laughing, unaware. They saw a washed-out logistics officer. She saw 8 uncoordinated targets. Davidson took a step forward. "You gonna cry now? Maybe call your co. Tell him the big bad boys hurt your feelings." Someone laughed hard enough to spill his beer. The sound scraped at the last thread of her restraint. Cara stood. The bar seemed to inhale, the laughter stuttered. Every movement of hers was measured, deliberate. She didn't posture, didn't flare, just rose from her seat like gravity had changed sides. Davidson towered over her, 90 pounds heavier, 8 inches taller. She looked up, calm. "You shouldn't touch what you can't handle," she said softly. That should have been the warning. But he laughed. He reached out, hand open, ready to shove her back into her seat. He never touched her. She pivoted left, caught his wrist, and used his own weight to drive him face first into the table. Wood cracked. Glass shattered. The sound of impact silenced the room. Davidson collapsed to the floor, choking on his own confusion. The bar froze, 3 seconds of stillness. Even the jukebox hesitated. Then chaos erupted. 4 seals surged up at once, instincts overriding reason. Chairs fell. The bartender reached for his phone but froze. This wasn't a bar fight. This was precision. Cara stepped back, sliding her boots across the glass-strewn floor. Her stance dropped, center of gravity aligned. She kicked a stool sideways, blocking the first charge. Rodriguez lunged, a roundhouse kick born of Muay Thai training. She slipped inside his reach, elbowed him in the solar plexus. Palm struck his jaw before he could recover. His head snapped back. He crashed into a booth. Martinez came from the left. She grabbed a bar towel, whipped it across his eyes, temporary blindness. One sweep, one strike to the ribs, he folded. Everything was movement and stillness at once. Her body remembered what her mind had buried. The drills, the reflexes, the controlled aggression that never left. The overhead camera blinked red, recording. Later, investigators would call it clinical. Every strike measured. Every defense justified. No wasted effort. No rage. Just skill. Thompson grabbed her from behind, arms locked around her torso. She dropped her weight, sudden dead mass, and broke the hold with a twist. One precise strike to the nerve cluster under his arm, another to the throat, controlled enough to choke, not crush. He fell to his knees, gagging. 2 more charged. She swung a chair low, sweeping their legs, then vaulted over them, landing near the bar. The movement was fluid, no pauses, no fury, just training. A bottle rolled under her boot. She kicked it across the floor, slicking the path with whiskey. One seal slipped, collided with another, crashing into shattered wood. The bartender stopped dialing, just watched, mouth open. It wasn't violence. It was demonstration. And it was beautiful. Jenkins, the biggest of them all, stepped forward with a broken bottle in hand. Blood from his palm dripped onto the floor. His eyes were wild. "You're not SEAL material," he roared. She waited, breathing slow. He lunged. She sidestepped, redirected his motion, and struck the nerve cluster near his shoulder. The bottle dropped. A knee to the gut. An elbow to the neck, controlled. He fell, unconscious, before he hit the ground. 6 down. 2 still standing, Patterson and Guzman. They exchanged a glance. Sobering realization passed between them. They'd been mocking her. Now they were recalculating. They split to flank her. Smart, tactical. But she adjusted, moving back toward the wall, removing their advantage, forcing linear engagement. Patterson feinted left. Guzman went right. She read it, dropped low, swept Guzman's legs out. As Patterson lunged, she rose, redirected his arm, drove her forearm across his throat. He gasped, stumbled. Guzman tried to grab her ankle. She stamped down, pinning him. Knee on chest, forearm at throat. Pressure. Controlled. 3 seconds, tap out. Submission. Then silence. Beer and blood mixed on the floor. The jukebox played absurdly soft country again, mocking the wreckage. 8 men, elite operators, lay groaning, coughing, or unconscious. And she hadn't broken a bone. Only one man still stood. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Hendricks. The team leader, the one who hadn't moved the entire time. He'd been sitting at the bar, sipping whiskey, eyes calm, watching. Now he stood, setting his glass down carefully, like a man stepping into something sacred. His movements were deliberate, no threat, no mockery, just respect. "Impressive," he said quietly. His voice carried through the silence. "You dropped 7 men in under 90 seconds. No lethal strikes, no panic, just control." He studied her face. "That's not logistics training." Cara didn't respond. Her heart rate was up, 120 maybe, but her breathing was steady. She watched his hands, his stance. He was sober, experienced, dangerous. If he wanted to test her, he'd be the hardest fight yet. But he didn't move closer, just circled, forcing her to pivot, eyes never leaving hers. "You know what I think, Bishop," he said. "You didn't fail Bud S because you were weak. You failed because you were too strong, too calm, too perfect, and that scared them." "Save the psychology," she replied quietly. "You came here to humiliate me. I defended myself, that's all this is." "No," he said. "We came here because I needed to know if the rumors were true, if the woman who quit was really as dangerous as they said." He reached down, picked up Jenkins' broken bottle, not as a weapon, just as a symbol. The shards caught the light. "I read your file," he said. "The parts that weren't blacked out, Marine Force Recon, hand-to-hand instructor, then one day gone, transferred, buried." Cara's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything." "I know when someone's been buried," he said softly. "When the system decides you're too capable to exist, so they erase you." Her voice went lower, steadier. "They didn't erase me, I quit." "Why?" His tone wasn't mocking now, just quiet curiosity. She looked at him. "Because during drown proofing I didn't panic. I went calm, too calm. They thought it was unnatural. Started asking about my record, my assignments, Syria, places that don't exist. I left before they dug too deep." The air thickened. The jukebox stopped. Only the hum of neon lights remained. Hendricks nodded slowly. "You were special activities." She didn't deny it, just stared back. "Now I'm logistics," she said finally. "And these men decided to remind me what I left behind." She stepped toward the door. The sirens were faint but growing, someone had called it in. She stepped over Davidson, over Martinez, didn't look back. "Bishop," Hendricks called. She paused in the doorway, framed by orange light from the street outside. "You never needed to prove anything," he said. "Not to them, not to anyone." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I know, but they needed to learn." The door closed behind her. Inside, Hendricks looked down at his fallen team. 7 SEALs, elite warriors, dismantled in less than 2 minutes by a woman they'd called dead weight. The bartender finally spoke, voice trembling. "Who the hell is she?" Hendricks lifted his glass, finished the last of his whiskey. "The one they should have never underestimated," he said. And outside, under the orange spill of streetlights, Lieutenant Cara Bishop disappeared into the California night, the hum of distant sirens fading behind her, walking not like a ghost, but like someone finally stepping out of one. Because dignity doesn't shout. It moves, and it leaves silence in its wake. How do you stay calm when the system that built you turns against you? Morning came like judgment, cold, gray, and heavy. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the waiting corridor at base headquarters. Lieutenant Cara Bishop sat outside Colonel Rayner's office, full uniform pressed, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her knuckles were bruised but clean. No bandages, no swelling. Her face unmarked. You'd never guess that 10 hours earlier she dropped 7 Navy SEALs like dominoes in a dive bar. The security guards who escorted her here didn't know what to make of her. They'd watched the surveillance footage, 9 cameras, full coverage. They'd seen her restraint, her control. One of them, a young MP barely out of academy, had muttered, "Ma'am, I wouldn't want to be on your bad side." She hadn't answered. She didn't have a bad side, just one that remembered too much. A door creaked open. Colonel James Rayner, age 56, silver hair, eyes like sharpened glass, stepped out and nodded. Lieutenant Bishop, inside. She rose, spine straight. No hesitation, military reflex. She stood before men like him 100 times, briefings, debriefings, interrogations that pretended to be conversations. Only this one was different, because for once, she wasn't the ghost in the corner. She was the storm everyone was whispering about. Rayner's office smelled like burnt coffee and exhaustion. On his desk sat a black mug that read "Quiet Professionals." Ironic, she thought. That's what they called the ones who never bragged, never boasted, the ones like her who vanished when things got complicated. He gestured, "Sit." She sat. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he opened a laptop and pressed play. The room filled with the echo of last night, wood cracking, glass shattering, controlled violence unfolding in slow motion. The grainy footage showed Cara moving through the bar like a current, fluid, deliberate, precise. When it ended, the colonel closed the laptop and stared at her. 7 men, he said flatly. Elite operators. You put them down in 90 seconds without inflicting permanent damage. That's impressive. They attacked first, sir, she replied quietly. I defended myself within legal parameters. Rayner studied her. I watched the tape. You could have killed any of them at least a dozen opportunities, but you didn't. You chose control. Her eyes stayed steady. Yes, sir. That's not self-defense instinct, he said, leaning back. That's advanced training, the kind logistics officers don't have. She didn't answer. The silence between them felt like a test. He opened a folder. Redacted documents filled the page, thick black lines where truth used to live. Lieutenant Cara Bishop, he read aloud. Marine Force Recon hand-to-hand combat instructor. His eyes flicked up. Then transferred to Naval Special Warfare Development Group for evaluation purposes. Translation: someone thought you were special enough for black work. Then suddenly logistics. He closed the file. That's a strange trajectory. With respect, sir, she said, if it's redacted, there's a reason. Humor me. Cara's gaze dropped to her hands, the small scars on her knuckles, faded reminders of places the Navy didn't acknowledge. She inhaled slowly, then spoke, her voice soft but steady. They wanted operators who could blend in, ones who wouldn't draw attention, could get close to targets in environments where seals stick out like scars. Small frame, female, multilingual. I fit the profile. Rayner didn't interrupt. I did 3 operations, she continued. All successful, all off-book. Then came a 4th, Damascus, extraction mission. I read the parameters, saw the setup. It was a trap. I told them. They sent me anyway. Her jaw flexed once. So I refused. He raised an eyebrow. You refused an op. They called me emotional, said I'd lost my nerve. I knew better. She paused, the memory tightening her chest. They made sure my record showed disobedience, lack of composure. So I volunteered for Bud S. Figured I'd prove them wrong. But by then they'd already made their decision. I was a liability, a reminder of something they wanted buried. They washed me out on a technicality. Then logistics. Rayner was silent for a moment. The only sound was the faint buzz of the light above them. Finally, he said, the Damascus mission happened 3 weeks after you left Bud S. I know, she said quietly. What about it? It was a trap, he said. The entire team was ambushed. 2 KIA, 4 wounded. The agency buried the report. The air in the room shifted. Cara's eyes closed. When they opened again, they were wet. Not from weakness, from truth finding air for the first time in years. Rayner leaned forward. You saved lives by saying no, Bishop, but the system punished you for it, because the system doesn't like women who see what men miss. She said nothing, just breathed, slow, steady. The same rhythm that had kept her alive underwater, in firefights, in interrogation rooms that smelled of sweat and denial. Rayner turned to the window. The base outside was waking up, recruits running drills, instructors barking commands, the illusion of order moving like clockwork. Chief Hendricks filed a report this morning, he said. Cara looked up. He did. Rayner nodded. He said you demonstrated exceptional tactical restraint and superior combatives proficiency. He's recommending you for an instructor position, advanced close-quarters combat, teaching the next generation. Her face flickered with disbelief. Sir, that can't be. He also said his men were out of line, Rayner interrupted. That they harassed you, that they got exactly what they deserved. He's taking full responsibility. She stared at him, searching for the catch. So, I'm not being charged. He shook his head. No, you're being promoted. Her breath caught a flicker of emotion she hadn't felt in years. Not joy, not pride, something quieter, relief. Rayner closed the file, stood, and walked around the desk. Bishop, the Navy failed you, he said. We buried your skills because they made us uncomfortable. We wasted your potential because we were afraid of what you represented. That ends now. I'm not looking for an apology, sir. I know, he said softly, but you're getting one anyway. He extended his hand. The Navy is sorry, Lieutenant, and we'd like a chance to do better. She hesitated, then took his hand, firm grip, controlled pressure, her voice low and certain. One condition. Name it. I teach them that strength isn't domination, it's control, knowing when to strike and when to spare, when to be silent. Rayner smiled faintly. That's exactly what they need. She nodded once, then I'm in. The next week dawn came with ocean mist rolling over the training fields. The air smelled of sweat, salt, and the metallic tang of early morning exertion. Recruits shouted cadence. Boots hit dirt. Somewhere, a whistle blew. And Cara Bishop stood at the edge of the training ground, instructor khakis pressed, whistle around her neck, clipboard in hand. Her posture was perfect, but it wasn't power that radiated from her, it was presence. The 7 SEALs from Murphy's Bar stood in formation in front of her, shoulders squared, faces hard. They weren't here for revenge. They were here for something harder, accountability. Chief Hendricks had ordered it himself, public apology, in front of the entire base. The crowd gathered, whispers passing like current. Everyone knew the story. Everyone wanted to see it play out. Cara's eyes scanned the line, Rodriguez, black eye still visible. Davidson, ribs taped tight. Martinez, slight limp. They looked at her not with hate but with the uneasy respect that comes when pride collides with truth. At ease, she said. They relaxed slightly, though none dared breathe too deep. You came here to say you're sorry, she continued, voice even, carrying across the open ground. To make it right, maybe shake hands, move on, forget it happened. They nodded. No. Her tone cut through the air like a blade. You don't get to forget, you get to remember. The silence was absolute. You remember every time you walk into a bar, every time you see a woman in uniform, every time you think about what makes someone strong. She stepped forward, eyes locked on Rodriguez. You remember that I could have broken your jaw but didn't. That mercy is harder than rage. To Davidson, you remember that I could have crushed your windpipe, but I didn't, because discipline is stronger than ego. To Martinez, you remember that the woman you called dead weight defended herself better than 7 of you combined, and you ask yourself why. The crowd held its breath. I don't need your apology, she said quietly. What I need is for you to be better, to train harder, to think deeper, to understand that respect isn't given by rank or gender or how many pounds you can bench press. It's earned through skill, through integrity, through knowing when to fight and when to walk away. Her words sank into the dirt, into the silence, into the hearts of everyone listening. Even the wind seemed to hold still. She looked back at the recruits watching from the sidelines, wide-eyed, silent. I washed out of Bud S, she said. That's public record. What's not public is why. I didn't fail because I was weak. I failed because I questioned orders that would have gotten people killed, and I was right. Her voice broke just slightly. Not from pain, from memory. But being right doesn't matter when the system wants you silent. She looked at the 7 men again. You judged me on the worst day of my career instead of the years before it. That's human. We all do it. What matters is what happens next. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke, steady, calm, with the weight of leadership. Lieutenant Bishop has agreed to teach advanced close-quarters combat, Hendricks said, stepping forward from the crowd. Hand-to-hand knife work, environmental awareness. She'll be training all naval special warfare candidates. His eyes met hers. And she'll be training us. A ripple of surprised laughter moved through the ranks. The tension cracked just slightly. That afternoon, under a white canopy near the field, Colonel Rayner handed Cara a small envelope. Inside, a letter of commendation. Not a medal, not ceremony, just a letter, signed by the Admiral of Naval Special Warfare Command. It read, "For exceptional service under unique circumstances, and for demonstrating that true strength endures in silence." They didn't salute, didn't pose for pictures, he just nodded. She nodded back. That night in the locker room, Cara stood alone before a mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't the woman who failed Bud S., it was the woman who had refused to be erased. She pinned the letter to her locker. Below it, she taped a note written in her own hand. "Strength is not loud, it endures." She touched the edge of the paper once, then walked out into the California night, the air crisp, the horizon red with sunset. Somewhere recruits shouted cadence again, the rhythm steady, the sound of discipline, not dominance. And for the first time in years, Cara Bishop smiled. Because sometimes, victory isn't a medal. It's a moment of stillness, when the ghosts inside finally stand down. What happens when peace feels heavier than war? 3 months passed. Long enough for bruises to fade, for gossip to quiet, for the base to return to its rhythm, early drills, loud orders, boots striking dirt like a metronome of obedience. Lieutenant Cara Bishop blended into that rhythm now. Not as the dead weight, not as the ghost, but as something far quieter and far stronger. Every morning before dawn, she arrived at the training grounds before the recruits. She'd walk the course in silence, the same one she used to run during Bud S. sand pits, rope climbs, water obstacles that reeked of memory. She would stop at the edge of the pool, stare at the dark surface, and for a few seconds she'd feel that old pull again, the cold water, the silence, the peace that used to terrify instructors. The peace that had gotten her labeled unnatural. Then the sound of boots would return. Recruits running, coughing, struggling, their eyes half afraid, half determined when they saw her. Lieutenant Bishop, the woman who'd taken down 7 SEALs in a bar without breaking a sweat. They looked at her like legend. She looked at them like potential. She never shouted during training. She didn't need to. Pain's temporary, she'd say. Control is. And when they failed, she didn't berate them. She told them to breathe, to reset, to move again. That was her teaching philosophy. Calm is a weapon. Chief Hendricks would sometimes watch from the sidelines. He never interfered. He didn't need to. Their respect was wordless now, the kind forged through shared truths and mutual recognition. Once, he approached her after class, sweat still running down his neck. "You ever gonna stop making us look bad?" he asked. She gave a faint smile. "Stop giving me reasons to, Chief." He'd laughed, the sound light but real. Fair enough. But under that quiet camaraderie, something lingered. A distance. A shadow that refused to fade. At night, when the base lights dimmed and the noise died, Cara would sit alone in her small apartment off base. The walls were bare except for a single framed quote from Marcus Aurelius. "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." Her days were ordered, her nights silent. And in that silence, she started to hear the hum again. The same hum that used to fill the air in safe houses overseas, in the long pauses between missions that never made headlines. Restlessness. Memory. the body remembering what the soul pretends to forget. She'd try to sleep, she couldn't. Her dreams were precise, looping, Damascus, drown-proofing, her own lungs begging underwater while instructors watched, waking up with the taste of salt and adrenaline. Sometimes she'd wake before dawn, sit on the floor, and trace her scars in the dim light, counting them like beads of a rosary, each one a chapter she wasn't allowed to speak about. She told herself she was fine. She was. Even teaching didn't fill the silence completely. The students respected her, admired her, but they didn't know her. How could they? They knew the legend, not the history, not the truth buried under redacted ink. But one evening, something shifted. It was after a long day of drills, exhaustion clinging to every muscle. She just dismissed the recruits, the sun bleeding orange across the base. The sound of waves carried faintly through the wire fences. She stood there, watching the horizon, calm, disciplined, alone. Hendricks walked up beside her. No words for a while, just the ocean and the hum of a distant helicopter. Then quietly, "You ever think about going back?" She didn't answer immediately. "Back where?" "You know what I mean," he said. "To the field, to the real thing." She exhaled. "You can't go back to something that never officially existed." He nodded. "Still, you miss it." Her jaw tightened. "I miss clarity." He looked at her. "Clarity." "In combat, everything makes sense," she said softly. "Threat, response. No politics, no second-guessing, just clean decisions. Out here," she gestured to the base, "everything's noise, rank, ego, appearances. Out there, all that dies, and you find out who you really are." He studied her for a long time. "And who are you, Bishop?" She didn't look at him, just watched the sun sink. Someone who's trying to forget what that question costs. He didn't press further, just nodded, turned, and left her alone with the horizon. That night she returned to her apartment, poured a single cup of black coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. The stillness was perfect. Too perfect. Then a sound. A ping. Her laptop screen lit up. An email had arrived. No subject line. Sender address, alphanumeric gibberish. The kind of encryption signature she hadn't seen in years. The kind used by Special Activities Division. Her pulse didn't change, but her breathing did. She opened it. Dubai, asset extraction. Environment requires low-profile operator. Your profile flagged by system as available and qualified. Interested. Below that, GPS coordinates, date, time. And a single name, Ghost Protocol. For a long moment she didn't move, just stared at the screen. Then her fingers touched the table, slow and deliberate. Her breathing steady, controlled. But her eyes weren't calm anymore. Something had woken up. She stood, walked to her closet. In the back, behind uniforms and training gear, there was a locked black case. She hadn't opened it in years. The combination clicked under her fingertips, mechanical, familiar. The lid opened with a soft hiss. Inside, passports under different names, currency from 6 countries, a sidearm she'd never registered, a small encrypted phone powered off since the day she quit. She turned it on. The startup tone was faint, almost ghostly. The screen flickered once, then settled. One contact appeared, Ghost. Her thumb hovered over it, not hesitation, calculation. Then she opened the secure messaging app, typed one word. Available. The response came within seconds. Confirmed, welcome back. Her reflection in the dark laptop screen looked different now. Not the instructor, not the survivor, not the ghost, something in between. She closed the laptop gently. The room felt smaller suddenly, like walls closing in with memory. She looked around, the punching bag in the corner, the tidy bed, the worn boots by the door. The life she'd built, the peace she'd earned, all of it fragile now, temporary. Because peace was never built for people like her. It was a layover, not a destination. She went to her desk, pulled out a whiteboard marker, and wrote 3 words in bold strokes across the board above her locker. True strength ENDURES in silence. Then she picked up her phone, texted her co. Need to take accumulated leave, 2 weeks. No questions asked, her record bought her that much. She packed light 1 duffel bag, practical clothes, neutral colors, no insignia, no identifiers. Her world was about to shrink again, into shadows, into whispers, into the invisible war where morality blurred and silence was the only armor. Before she left, she glanced once more at the letter pinned to her locker, the one signed by the Admiral. True strength endures in silence. A faint smile crossed her face. Guess I'll prove it. The next morning, the California sun rose over the base as usual. Recruits ran drills. The world moved on, unaware. Only Hendricks noticed her absence when he reached the training yard. Her locker was locked, her clipboard missing. On the whiteboard, her handwriting stared back at him, black ink, clear message. He read it once, then twice. He didn't need to ask where she'd gone. He already knew. "Godspeed, Bishop," he murmured. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, a man in a dim operations room read a message on a secure line. Subject confirmed. Extraction team prepping. Handler ghost. He smiled faintly. She's coming back. And in a small apartment on the California coast, the last trace of Lieutenant Cara Bishop, the woman the Navy once called dead weight, vanished into quiet. No medals, no orders, no briefing. Just a plane ticket under a false name, a burner phone, and a new mission. Some warriors fight for flags. Some fight for redemption. But the quietest ones, the ghosts, fight for something else entirely. They fight for the truth that can't be spoken. Because justice doesn't always wear a uniform. And sometimes the loudest act of strength is silence. Why does silence feel louder when you step back into the dark? The flight was quiet. A red-eye from San Diego to Dubai, booked under a name that didn't belong to her. The kind of name that disappeared after a mission was done. Cara Bishop sat in seat 23A, eyes half closed, posture relaxed. To anyone watching, she was another traveler, business casual, earbuds in, sleeping through turbulence. But inside, her pulse was measured. Her breathing was deliberate. And her mind was building maps. Every sound, every scent, every shift in air pressure became information. The hum of the jet engines, the creak of overhead bins, the muffled cough too rose back, all catalogued automatically. Years of training didn't fade. They just slept until summoned. She looked out the window. Below, the darkness of the Atlantic folded into dawn. The first threads of sunlight stretched across cloud tops like fire waking from embers. She hadn't slept. She didn't want to. The message on her encrypted phone had been simple. Dubai asset extraction. Low visibility, 48-hour window. No details, no team, no backup. That was how Ghost Protocol operated. One person, one mission, no trace. The kind of assignment you couldn't explain, even to the people who trusted you most. When the plane landed, Dubai's skyline shimmered through the heat haze, glass towers rising out of desert, a city of reflections where secrets were currency. She stepped off the jet bridge, blending into the flow of passengers. Passport control took seconds. The agent scanned her face, smiled, and waved her through. Different name, same eyes. Outside, sunlight hit like a hammer. She slipped on sunglasses, walked past waiting chauffeurs, and turned toward the far edge of the terminal. A white sedan waited there. The driver, a middle-aged man with a local accent, nodded once, then looked away. No words exchanged, just a silent transaction of recognition. She slid into the back seat. The driver handed her a small envelope from the glove box. Inside, a photograph, coordinates, and a single line of text. Asset KARAMENDES, civilian cover, extraction window 36 hours. She flipped the photo. A woman, mid-30s, brown hair, tired eyes, standing in front of a humanitarian aid building. Nothing about her screamed asset, which usually meant everything about her did. Cara looked out the window as the city blurred past, gold towers, white cars, the endless hum of traffic. The hum of civilization layered over the hum of tension inside her. Her phone buzzed once. Ghost apartment ready. 1907 brief. She typed acknowledged. The apartment was small, clean, anonymous. 8th floor of a residential tower with a view of the marina. Curtains drawn. Inside, minimal furniture, filtered light, a single tactical case on the counter. She opened it. Contents: one suppressed Sig Sauer P365, 3 extra magazines, 2 burner phones, and a passport in the same alias. And beneath it all, a folded note. In a handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Trust no one. If they say the word Azura, abort. Her fingers paused on the paper. Azura, a code name, a dead one. Someone inside the network was warning her, which meant someone inside the network couldn't be trusted. She sat back against the counter, reading the room again, the air thick with silence. That old feeling returned, the calm that scared people, the calm before motion. At 1907, the encrypted phone vibrated again. A single text, balcony. She crossed to the balcony doors and opened them slightly. A figure stood across the narrow street on a neighboring rooftop, dark clothes, headset, camera lens glinting once in the city glow. He raised a hand, 2 fingers to his temple, signal, visual confirmation. Then he vanished. She closed the door, checked her watch. 1908. The mission had officially begun. That night she moved through Dubai like a ghost. Light gray shawl, neutral dress, local accent practiced. Her cover, NGO consultant specializing in refugee logistics. The irony wasn't lost on her. The coordinates led to a neighborhood far from the skyscrapers. Old streets, narrow alleys, markets that smelled of cardamom and diesel. The kind of place where secrets didn't echo, they dissolved. She found the address. A small humanitarian office, unmarked, quiet. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over metal desks and dusty computers. One woman sat alone, typing, the same face from the photo, Cara Mendes. Cara stepped closer softly. "They told me to meet you," she said. The woman looked up startled. Who are you?" "Someone who's here to make sure you survive the next 2 days." Confusion flickered in her eyes. "Survive? I don't." Cara held up a small card. No names, just a symbol, the ghost insignia. The woman froze, recognition, fear. "You're not supposed to be," they said. The op was off. Cara's tone didn't change. They lied. Back at the apartment, Mendes told her everything in fragments. The aid office was a front. She'd been gathering intel on black market arms routes disguised as medical shipments. Someone found out. Her contact disappeared 2 nights ago. Now every call, every message she received came with static. "Static means trace attempts," Cara said quietly. "They're coming soon." Mendes' hands trembled. "They said extraction was canceled, that I was burned." "Extraction was reactivated," Cara replied, "by me." Mendes stared at her. "Why you?" Cara loaded her pistol, chambered it with a clean metallic click. "Because everyone else is compromised." The woman swallowed. "Are we safe here?" Cara didn't answer. She was already scanning the room, angles, sightlines, possible entries. Her gaze landed on a ventilation grate too new, screws too clean. She stepped closer, removed it, and found a micro camera wired to a transmitter, still warm. "They're watching," she said. Mendes' breath hitched. "Oh my God." Cara crushed the camera under her boot. "Pack only what you can carry." By midnight, they were on the move. A maze of alleys, taxis, false turns. Cara changed routes 3 times, watching for tails, reflections in glass, headlights repeating too often, movement patterns that didn't fit. She guided Mendy's into an underground parking lot beneath an unfinished mall. Cool air, the smell of concrete dust. "Stay close," she said. "How will we get out?" "There's a diplomatic convoy heading to Sharjah at 500, Cara said. "We'll intercept near checkpoint Bravo. Once we're in their vehicle chain, no one can touch us." "Convoy?" Mendy's frowned. "How do you know about that?" "I used to write their routes," Cara said simply. They waited in silence. Mendy sat against a pillar, clutching her bag. Cara crouched near an abandoned sedan, eyes closed but mind wide awake. Every sound mattered, the drip of water, distant tires, the faint hum of a generator. At 0312 a sound shifted, not loud, just wrong, a soft echo too deliberate. Movement near the stairwell. Cara's eyes opened. "Stay down," she whispered. Footsteps 4, maybe 5. Light train but not careful enough. She saw their shadows before she saw their shapes, silhouettes slicing the light, suppressors, black masks. They weren't local security, they were cleaners. She exhaled once slow, then the switch flipped. The calm wasn't fear, it was readiness. The first man rounded the corner. She moved before he saw her, 2 steps forward, hand snapping his wrist sideways, suppressor misfiring into concrete. A second twist, a low strike to the throat, his body collapsing silently. Gunfire whispered through the garage. She dove behind the sedan, dragging Mendy's down. "Stay low." Another shadow advanced. She popped up, 2 controlled shots center mass. The body fell without sound. 3 left, they spread flanking, smart. She kicked a piece of metal across the floor, sound diversion. One turned his head, she moved. 2 shots, 1 impact. Another came behind her. She pivoted, slammed her elbow into his jaw, spun, and used his momentum to fire into the last man's knee. The silence after was deeper than before. The hum of the city gone. Just breathing, hers controlled, Mendy's ragged. Cara crouched, checked pulses, all clean hits, non-lethal except the throat strike. No witnesses. "They weren't after me," Mendy's whispered, trembling. Cara met her eyes. "No, they were after whoever you were about to meet." Mendy's frowned, "But I wasn't meeting anyone." Cara's voice dropped. "Someone in your organization was. They sold you out to lure me here." The words hung heavy. A trap again. She retrieved one of the fallen men's comms units, pressed the button. A voice crackled through, male, calm, American accent. "Status report." Cara stared at the device, then softly, Azura. "Static." Then silence. She crushed the comm under her boot. Someone had just triggered the abort word. The entire mission was compromised. Mendy's voice trembled. "What now?" Cara looked toward the exit, her silhouette framed in the dim light, calm as ever. "Now," she said, "we adapt." By 04:20 they were gone. The parking lot empty except for bodies cooling under fluorescent hum. In a safe house outside the city, Cara patched into a secure line. No connection, no ghost response. Whoever had triggered Azura had cut comms entirely. She stared at the encrypted phone. "They're burning the op," she murmured. "Someone's cleaning house." Mendy's paced. "Then why are we still alive?" "Because they want something first." "What?" "Me." Outside, the first call to prayer echoed through the city, soft, haunting, beautiful. The kind of sound that made people stop for peace. Cara didn't stop. She loaded a fresh mag, checked her watch. The sun was rising. Somewhere in the maze of towers and sand, someone was watching her. Someone who knew who she really was. And as the light poured through the blinds, she understood the truth. This wasn't just a mission. It was a reckoning. She left the shadows years ago. Now the shadows had come back for her. She holstered her weapon, tightened her ponytail, and looked out the window at the glowing skyline. "All right," she whispered, "let's finish what you started. Because ghosts don't run from darkness. They walk into it, silently, deliberately. Until the darkness blinks first. What happens when the person you trusted most is the reason you're being hunted?" Dawn broke over Dubai in shades of gold and heat. From the window of a safe house in Al Barsha, Cara Bishop watched sunlight slide across glass towers. The city was awake again, pretending the night hadn't happened. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her gun lay disassembled on the counter, every piece cleaned, reassembled, and rechecked. Her mind was doing the same thing, breaking events down to parts, trying to see which one didn't fit. The camera in the vent, the hit team in the garage, the code word Azura. She'd gotten one warning before leaving the States. If someone says Azura, it's not the mission, it's the trap. Now it had been used against her. She holstered her weapon, looked over at Cara Mendes, the terrified civilian caught in the crossfire. The woman was pale, trembling, clutching her knees on the couch. "They're not coming, are they?" Mendes asked softly. Cara didn't answer. The truth would have been cruel. Ghost Protocol missions didn't fail, they ended. When a handler lost control, the system erased the problem. And sometimes the problem was the operative. She checked her watch, 0547, "We move in 10. "Move where?" "Somewhere you can survive," Cara said simply. Mendes swallowed. "And you?" Cara's gaze didn't waver. "That depends on who's lying." The streets were already awake when they slipped out. The air shimmered with heat, horns blaring, humanity rushing past unaware. Cara kept her head down, scarf wrapped loosely, pistol holstered under her jacket. Mendes walked beside her, trying to look normal, failing. They reached a taxi stand. Cara opened the back door. "Get in." Mendes hesitated. "What about?" "You'll go to this address," Cara interrupted, handing her a small card. "There's a woman named Hala. She runs a women's shelter. Say you're a refugee from Aleppo. She'll hide you." Mendes stared at her. "And you?" Cara's voice stayed calm. "I'll find who set us up." The woman's lip trembled. "You don't even know who they are." "I know where to start." Mendes shook her head. "You don't have to." Cara met her eyes. "I do." Because it wasn't just a mission anymore. It was personal. She closed the taxi door, watched it merge into the morning traffic until it was gone. Then she turned south, toward the Marina district. By noon, she was back where it had all begun, the apartment she'd been assigned on arrival. The front door looked untouched, but when she reached for the handle, her hand stopped an inch short. The smell. Too clean, too fresh. Someone had been inside. She drew her pistol quietly, stepped sideways, and kicked the door open in a single motion. Silence. Curtains fluttering. The faint hum of AC. She moved room to room, sweep, clear, confirm. Then she saw it. A man sitting calmly at the kitchen counter, glass of water in hand, as if waiting for her. Her grip tightened. "Don't," she said coldly. The man smiled faintly. Mid-40s, sun-weathered skin, the kind of stillness that only came from years in the field. "Hello, Cara." "Ghost." He nodded once, still fast, still quiet. Her voice stayed sharp. "You used the abort code." He exhaled slow. "Had to." "You tried to kill me." "I tried to contain you," he corrected softly. "Big difference." Her jaw clenched. "Contain me from what?" He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. You deserve to hear it." She didn't move. "Talk." 3 weeks ago, we intercepted chatter about a potential breach inside Ghost Protocol. Someone on the inside was feeding information to an arms broker called Surov. We didn't know who. Then your name came up. The algorithm flagged your profile for reactivation. She narrowed her eyes. So you assumed I was the leak. He shook his head. No, but someone inside used your activation to flush the real mole. Mendy's was bait, you were the net. Except the net almost got shot in a parking garage. Ghost took a slow sip of water. Because the mole moved faster than we expected, they hijacked the op, flipped the target, and sent a hit team to erase both of you. Who's the mole? He hesitated. I don't know yet, but I know who's protecting them. She crossed her arms. Who? The same people who buried you after Damascus. Silence. He leaned forward. Cara, this isn't about an asset or a leak, it's about unfinished business. The Damascus mission, you were right, it was a setup. The ambush wasn't accidental. Someone inside wanted that team dead. She didn't blink. Why? Because they were clean, he said quietly, and the ones running the op weren't. The words landed like static in her ears. She'd suspected corruption before, but hearing it confirmed, years later, from the only person she still half trusted, it was like an old scar ripping open. She sat slowly, gun still in her hand. Who signed that mission? Ghost met her eyes. Colonel James Rayner. Her breath stopped. The name hit harder than a bullet. Rayner, the same man who had apologized, the one who had offered her redemption, the one who had told her the Navy was sorry. Her grip on the pistol tightened until her knuckles went white. Say that again. Rayner ran special activities oversight back then, Ghost said quietly. He signed off on the Damascus mission under false coordinates. After the ambush, he erased the file and redirected blame to you. 2 of his men died, and he needed a scapegoat. He told me he found out after, she whispered. He lied, Ghost said. He's been cleaning his tracks ever since. Cara's pulse pounded in her ears. All the calm she'd built since leaving the shadows cracked open. The neat lines, the structure, the discipline gone. Just noise now. Rage under control. He sent me that commendation, she said, almost to herself. He said I saved lives by saying no. Ghost nodded, and he needed you to believe that. The silence between them stretched. Finally she said, why tell me now? Because I can't move against him. I'm still in the system, you're not. So I'm expendable. You're free. Her laugh was hollow. That's what you call this. He leaned forward. Cara, listen to me. You're the only one who can bring this out. He's got files, hard copies, not digital, locked in a private facility under the Al-Zahra Embassy Annex. If you can get them, you can prove the whole network exists. But once you do, you'll have every intelligence branch in the hemisphere after you. Then I'll move fast, she said. Don't make this a vendetta. It's not a vendetta, she said quietly. It's correction. Ghost watched her for a long time. You haven't changed. I learned from you, she replied. He smiled faintly. Then maybe I did something right. She stood, holstering her weapon. I'll contact you when I have proof. He shook his head. You won't need to, I'll find you. She walked to the door, hand on the handle. Cara, he called softly. She paused. Be careful who you trust, even me. She looked back once. That's the problem, Ghost. I don't trust anyone anymore. Then she left. The heat outside hit her like a wave, but her pulse was ice. Rayner, the mentor, the man who'd seen her, defended her. He was the architect of everything that broke her career. The rage that swelled in her chest wasn't loud. It was measured, focused. Rage under control. That was her weapon now. She moved quickly through back streets, tailing herself to make sure she wasn't being followed. Old habits, corners, reflections, rhythm. Once satisfied, she ducked into a quiet cafe, ordered black tea, and opened her laptop. Her fingers moved fast. VPN spoofed IP. She hacked into a satellite relay node she'd memorized years ago. Not for attack, for listening. Rayner's voice came through 5 minutes later. Containment complete, asset neutralized. He was talking to someone. Bishop is presumed terminated. Ghost denies involvement. Mission file as Azura closed. Kara's hand tightened on the table. He'd already written her off as dead. Good. That would make her job easier. She closed the laptop, drained her tea, and walked out. The sunlight reflected off glass towers, catching her face for one brief moment before she disappeared into the crowd. That night she sat in the desert, far from the city. The stars above were sharp, countless, cold. The kind of sky you could only see when the world stopped pretending to be civilized. She'd found a small abandoned outpost, nothing but sand and silence. Perfect place to think, perfect place to decide who she was going to be next. The truth hurt. Not because she'd been betrayed, she was used to that. It hurt because she'd believed redemption was real, that Raynor's apology had meant something. Now she knew better. Redemption was a myth people offered to others so they could sleep at night. The desert wind brushed against her face. She whispered to the emptiness, "You built me to fight shadows. You just forgot I could become one." Then she started planning. She'd need eyes inside the embassy annex. She'd need access to the courier routes. And she'd need to stay invisible. 3 days, she told herself. 3 days to collect the proof. Then the ghosts could rest. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number, encrypted channel. She answered. A voice, calm, familiar, whispered through static. "I told you not to trust anyone, Bishop." She froze, ghost. Static hissed, then clearer, "He's not the only one watching you." She opened her mouth to speak. But the line went dead. She stared at the phone. For the first time in years, she felt something colder than anger. Something older. The certainty that even in silence, she was being hunted. Far away, in an office lined with Navy commendations and framed photos, Colonel Raynor closed his laptop. The faint reflection of Cara Bishop's face glowed on the dark screen, pulled from satellite feed footage. He reached for his coffee mug. It still said "Quiet Professionals." He smiled faintly to no one. "Welcome back to the game, Lieutenant," he murmured. Then he deleted her name from the database, again. Because in wars fought by ghosts, even survival can be erased. How far would you go to confront the man who gave you back your life, then took it away? The desert was still when she moved. No wind, no sound, just a woman in sand-colored fatigues blending into the emptiness between city and horizon. 2 days had passed since her meeting with Ghost. 2 days since she learned Raynor's betrayal wasn't just bureaucratic, it was deliberate. He hadn't just buried her, he'd built her silence. Now she was going to break it. The facility lay 10 kilometers outside Dubai, officially a diplomatic storage annex for the Al Zahra embassy. Unofficially, a covert data and personnel archive for off-the-book operations. Its walls were high, its cameras discreet, its guards rotated every 6 hours with clockwork precision. She studied the patterns for 30 hours straight, sleeping only in 10-minute bursts. The schedule didn't lie. She had a 2-minute window between patrol sweeps to get inside. At 01:12 local time, she started moving. Her boots sank softly into the sand as she approached the perimeter. The air shimmered faintly with heat even at night. The hum of distant generators pulsed through the ground. Every sound had rhythm, predictable, mechanical. The kind of rhythm she could dance through. She reached the wall, crouched, and pulled a coil of fiber rope from her pack, anchored it silently, ascended hand over hand. Her movements were surgical, every inch calculated, every breath counted. At the top she flattened, scanned the courtyard below. 2 guards, one smoking, one scrolling on a tablet, the kind of negligence that only comes from routine. She dropped quietly into shadow. The camera above the south door rotated every 8 seconds. She moved on the 7th. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply, air-conditioned corridors, white walls, fluorescent lights. The hum of servers filled the silence, the kind that vibrated through bone. She moved through hallways like a memory, her mind mapping the structure in real time, recalling training she tried to forget. Sensory echo, vector packing, predictive motion. Every footstep was measured, every corner checked, every sound anticipated. She reached the archive room, a reinforced door with biometric lock. Her heart rate stayed at 62. From her pouch, she retrieved a small scanner, old tech, agency issue. She pressed it against the pad. The red light flickered, turned green. She exhaled once. Access granted. Inside, rows of locked file cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with designations that meant nothing to civilians. OPN 412D, SAD 13, BDS Cerberus. But one folder caught her eye. AZURA. She pulled it open. Inside, satellite prints, black site rosters, transcripts. And then her own name. Lieutenant Cara Bishop, psychological flag, emotional control anomaly. Operational threat classification, class 3. Recommendation, discredit and remove. She stared at the words. Her breath left her body slowly, quietly. There it was, the truth. They hadn't failed her. They erased her on purpose. She kept reading. Under her name, Rayner's signature. Authorization code. Date, the week after Damascus. The room swayed slightly, not from emotion, from the weight of confirmation. The mentor, the apology, the letter of commendation. All theater. All camouflage. She turned the page, another file, another signature. Handler Ghost. Her pulse stopped. Ghost's name wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't even listed in Navy records. He was off-grid, beyond oversight. So how had Rayner gotten his authorization? She read the next page, transcript of a secured call. Ghost, you're asking me to burn her. That's a mistake. Rayner, she's a risk. Too much control, not enough loyalty. Ghost, you built her that way. Rayner, and I can unbuild her. The room went silent. Her fingers trembled for the first time. He had known, Ghost had known about the setup, maybe not the trap but the erasure, and he'd let it happen. The air thickened around her. The kind of silence that feels alive. For a moment she didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't think. Then she pulled out her phone, activated the camera, and started photographing every page. One after another, every file, every document. Proof, not vengeance. Correction. Until a voice spoke behind her. Step away from the cabinet, Lieutenant. Her gun was out before she turned. Rayner stood in the doorway. No guards, no backup, just him, older, harder, in desert fatigues instead of his usual uniform. He looked calm, almost disappointed. Put it down, Cara, he said. We both know how this ends. She kept her gun trained. You should have left me buried. He sighed. You were never buried. You were protected from yourself. Protected, her voice cracked into a laugh. You erased my career. You wrote me off as a psychological threat. He nodded once, because you are one. She stepped closer. You sent men to die in Damascus. They were soldiers, he said coldly. They knew the risk. They didn't know you set them up. He didn't deny it, just watched her. Sometimes the system requires sacrifice. She lowered the gun an inch, studying him. You sound like every man who's ever justified murder with paperwork. He smirked, still moral even after everything. That's what I always liked about you. Liked, she echoed. You're not here because you want justice, he said softly. You're here because you want to matter again. You miss it, the control, the power, the clarity. You're pretending this is about truth. It's not. It's about belonging. Her grip tightened. You don't get to psychoanalyze me, sir. Then shoot me, he said. But understand this, you pull that trigger, you prove every word I wrote in that file. Her finger hovered on the trigger. The word sliced deeper than any bullet. She wanted to deny it, wanted to tell him she didn't need to belong to anything, that she'd found peace. But peace had left her the moment that email arrived. He saw it in her eyes. You can't live without the mission, Cara. You were born for it, molded by it. That's why we kept you, why we hid you. You don't retire from what you are. Then what am I? She whispered. He smiled faintly. You're the weapon that learned to think. The words hit her like recoil. And in that split second of distraction, he moved. He lunged forward, slammed her wrist against the filing cabinet. The gun fell. Pain shot up her arm. She countered instantly, elbowed his ribs, pivoted, kicked low. He staggered but didn't fall. He was trained too old school, deliberate. They fought like two people who knew the same system, precise, restrained, brutal. He reached for her throat. She ducked, drove her shoulder into his chest, sent him back into a glass case. The sound shattered the silence. Stop, he shouted. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. She grabbed his arm, twisted, pinned him against the wall. The gun was between them now, both hands gripping it, barrel wavering. His voice lowered. You think this will fix it? Kill me and they'll replace me, erase you again, maybe worse. She pressed the barrel against his chest. I'm not here to kill you. Then what? He demanded. To expose you. His face hardened. You'll never make it out of this building. She smiled faintly. Then I'll make sure the truth does. She turned, slammed the emergency fire switch. The alarm screamed through the hallways. Red lights flooded the room. Automatic protocols triggered, system locks overridden, servers going into fail-safe backup. She planned this. While photographing the files, she'd inserted a data spike, a silent uplink routing every scanned document to an external relay. A relay Ghost had built years ago. Even if she died here, the files wouldn't. Rayner's eyes widened. What did you do? She met his gaze. Set you free, sir, from all your secrets. He lunged again. She sidestepped. The gun went off. The sound cracked through the hall. Rayner fell backward against the cabinet, sliding down slowly. His hand pressed to his shoulder, not fatal but deep. Blood bloomed through the fabric. He looked up at her, eyes half defiant, half betrayed. You think this changes anything? No, she said softly, but it starts something. She stepped closer, crouched beside him. You taught me control, discipline, silence, but you forgot one thing. His breathing grew shallow. What? She looked at him with calm, steady eyes. Even ghosts have memories. Then she stood and walked out. The alarms echoed through the complex. Guards flooded the hallways. Cara moved fast through smoke, through red light, through chaos. She didn't shoot unless she had to. She disarmed, stunned, evaded. Every motion was instinct. Every breath calculated. By the time she reached the outer fence, the first helicopters were spinning up. She scaled the wall, dropped to the sand, ran until the compound was aglow behind her. Her lungs burned, her heart didn't. At the edge of the desert, she collapsed to her knees. Pulled the phone from her pocket. Opened the Uplink app. Upload complete. File AZURA transferred to external relay. She exhaled, long controlled. Then her phone buzzed again. One message. From Ghost. Nice work, Bishop, but you weren't supposed to send it there. She froze. Then typed, where did it go? No response. Only a typing indicator. Then nothing. The line went dead. She stared at the screen, realization crawling up her spine. He'd played her again. He hadn't been the mentor. He'd been the handler still pulling strings. The truth wasn't out. It had been rooted. To him, she looked toward the horizon, the lights of Dubai glowing faintly in the distance. The game wasn't over. It was just shifting pieces. The desert wind picked up, carrying sand and silence. She holstered her weapon, stood, and started walking toward the city lights. Because if Ghost thought he could control her again, he'd forgotten one thing. The last person who called her dead weight never walked away unscarred. What do you do when the man who made you is the same one using you to bury the truth? The plane touched down under an alias. No name, no rank, no trace. California looked different after 3 years away, the same sunlight, the same coastline, but colder somehow. The air felt sharper, cleaner, too clean for someone coming from shadows. Cara Bishop stepped off the tarmac like she'd never left, just another traveler in civilian clothes, her expression unreadable. But behind her eyes, the storm was back. She didn't look like a ghost anymore, she was one. In her jacket pocket, her phone sat dark and silent, the same phone that had betrayed her. The files she'd risked everything to expose were gone. Ghost had rerouted them mid-upload. He now held the truth, every document, every signature, every sin. And she'd handed it to him. Her plan had been to burn Rayner's empire to ash. Instead, she'd rebuilt it for the man behind the curtain. Now she was going to finish it. Not with orders, not with a team, not with backup. Just with purpose. She moved quietly through San Diego, sticking to habits old enough to be instinct side streets, reflective windows, no pattern in her routes. The city glowed the same way it had when she'd been a recruit, neon lights, bars, laughter spilling into the night. Only now she watched from the outside. At dusk, she returned to the one place she thought she'd never see again. Murphy's Bar. It had been rebuilt since that night. New wood, new lights, same sign. Inside, the smell of whiskey and salt lingered. The crowd was younger now, recruits, loud, untested. She sat in the same corner booth where it had all begun. The bartender, an older man with gray hair, glanced over. "Been a while," he said. She gave a faint smile. "You remember me." Hard to forget the woman who turned my place into a combat zone. He poured her a glass of water, not whiskey. "On the house, you look like you're working." "Always," she murmured. He leaned closer, voice lower. "That guy you fought, Hendricks, he comes by sometimes. Says you taught him something." Cara nodded, eyes down. "Tell him to remember it." The bartender studied her for a beat. "You okay, Lieutenant?" "I'm not that anymore," she said quietly. He shrugged. "You don't stop being what you are." She looked up at him, the truth landing heavier than he meant it to. "No," she said, "you really don't." That night she sat alone in a motel off the highway. The lights hummed, pale yellow. The sound of traffic outside faded into static. She placed the phone on the table. The screen flickered once, then lit up, encrypted message waiting. No name, just one word. "We need to talk." Her pulse didn't change. She typed back, "Where?" Response, Pier 17, 0300. No threats, no instructions, just a summons. She stared at the message for a long time, then powered down the phone and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come, only memory. Rayner's voice echoing through her head. "You're the weapon that learned to think." Ghost's words before she left Dubai. "You're free." Both lies, both anchors. At 02:45 she stood, tied her hair back, checked her weapon. The mirror caught her reflection, calm, collected, detached. The woman in the glass didn't look angry. She looked resolved. Pier 17 was deserted at that hour, the kind of place where no one would hear a conversation go wrong. The moon hung low over the Pacific, lighting the water in fractured silver. Cargo containers loomed like tombstones. She walked down the pier, her boots silent against wet concrete. Halfway down, a figure stepped from the shadows. Black coat, no weapon drawn. "Ghost." He smiled faintly. I was wondering if you'd come. Curiosity kills habits, she said. I never saw you as curious, he replied, just relentless. She stopped a few meters away. You stole the files. I redirected them, he corrected, to keep them safe. Safe from who? From everyone, he said, including you. Her jaw tightened. You think I'd misuse them? I think you don't understand what you're holding, he said calmly. You think Rayner was the cancer. He was the symptom. You expose him, someone else steps in. You leak the files, half the system collapses, operations, intelligence links, cover agents in 6 countries. People die, Cara, civilians, soldiers, people who don't deserve it. So you'll keep it buried, she said coldly, like Damascus. His eyes darkened. Don't make this personal. It is personal, she snapped. You let them bury me. He exhaled slowly. You were never meant to be erased. You were meant to disappear long enough for them to forget your name. That's what saved you. Saved me, she repeated. You call that saving? He didn't answer. The silence stretched. Only the sound of waves filled the space between them. Finally she said, Why me? Why keep me alive? He looked at her, expression unreadable. Because I believed you were the only part of the system still worth protecting. Then prove it, she said. Release the files. He shook his head. You're thinking like a soldier again. Orders, targets, outcomes. This isn't a mission, it's maintenance. Sometimes truth isn't the cure, it's the infection. Spare me the philosophy, she said. You're still covering for them. He stepped closer. I'm keeping balance. She raised her weapon. You call this balance? He didn't flinch. You won't shoot me. Don't test me. I trained you, he said softly. I know your heartbeat before you pull the trigger. You won't shoot because deep down you know I'm right. If the files go public, everything burns. She steadied her aim. Maybe it needs to. Then you're no better than Rayner. That one hit, sharp, cold. She froze for a fraction of a second, long enough for him to move. He stepped in fast, hand twisting her wrist, disarming her with practiced efficiency. The gun hit the ground, sliding across the pier. He didn't raise it, didn't strike, just held her arm steady but unyielding. Stop fighting ghosts, Cara, he said. You'll lose yourself. Her breathing was steady, but her voice cracked with restrained fury. I already did. He let go, stepped back. You don't have to end like this. Walk away live, that's an order. She looked up. You don't give me orders anymore. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Then what are you going to do? She crouched, picked up the gun and holstered it. Something you taught me. He frowned, and what's that? She turned, walking toward the end of the pier. Adapt. By dawn, she was gone. Ghost stood alone, watching the horizon turn from gray to gold. The waves broke against the pylons, cold and indifferent. He pulled out his phone, typed one line. She's off-grid. The reply came instantly. Contain her. He stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. Cara drove north along the coast, the sea on her left, the morning sun cutting through fog. The radio stayed off. The silence was her companion now. Every few miles, she'd see reminders of who she used to be, naval bases, recruitment billboards, the faces of young soldiers who still believed service meant clarity. She wondered what they'd say if they knew what it really meant to be useful, to be disposable. She stopped at a rest area overlooking the ocean. The wind carried the scent of salt and rain. She stood there for a while, watching the water, listening to the endless rhythm of waves. This was what peace was supposed to sound like. And she didn't trust it. Her phone buzzed once, unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A voice, faint, digital, altered, Bishop. She froze. Who is this? Someone who wants the same thing you do. Her grip tightened. Truth. No, the voice said. Balance. Ghost. No, someone watching him, watching you. Why? Because Ghost didn't just take the files, the voice said. He's rewriting them. What do you mean rewriting? He's cleaning history, the voice replied, and you're the last trace left. The line cut. Cara stared at the horizon. The waves below crashed harder now, louder, as if echoing the heartbeat she'd tried to suppress. She finally understood the depth of the game she was in. It wasn't about secrets anymore. It was about memory. Ghost wasn't protecting the system. He was rewriting it, reshaping truth itself, deciding who existed and who didn't. And she was next on the list. She looked at the gun in her hand, the same weapon she'd used to survive every betrayal, every test. Then she looked at the ocean, vast, unending, ungoverned. I was built for silence, she whispered, but silence isn't peace. She holstered the weapon and walked back to the car. The war hadn't ended. It had only gone invisible again. And this time, she wasn't fighting for a mission. She was fighting for memory, her own, and everyone they'd tried to erase. That evening, she parked outside a storage warehouse near the outskirts of Los Angeles, a place that didn't exist on maps. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. Rows of abandoned crates lined the walls. She opened one. Inside, uniforms, weapons, hard drives unmarked. She plugged one into her laptop. The screen lit up. Folders appeared, each labeled with a code name, each linked to a mission she recognized. And in the corner of the directory, a folder titled Ghost. Her pulse quickened. She opened it. Hundreds of files, voice recordings, mission transcripts, surveillance images. One of them was hers. She clicked play. Her own voice came through, grainy. Target secured. Secondary extraction failed. Repeat, failed, then static. She froze. That recording didn't exist. She'd never made that transmission. Ghost had fabricated her voice. He wasn't just rewriting files, he was rewriting people. She sat back slowly, staring at the screen as realization hit. He was building a new archive, a new truth, a world where silence wasn't protection, it was extinction. The kind of world she'd been created to serve, but never questioned. Until now. Her reflection stared back at her in the glow of the laptop, calm, steady, unbroken. The ghost had come full circle. She whispered to herself, "Then let's see how you handle a shadow that remembers." Outside, the city lights shimmered in the distance, bright, alive, unaware. Inside, Cara Bishop started typing, a new file name. Echo. She began uploading everything she had, her memories, her voice, her evidence. Not to the military, not to the press, but to the one network Ghost couldn't control. The veterans underground, the people who'd lost faith but never forgot truth. If Ghosts built silence, she'd build echoes. Because echoes don't die. They spread. And for the first time since Damascus, Cara Bishop wasn't running. She was broadcasting. Not revenge. Not exposure. Just truth, raw and alive. Because sometimes, the loudest rebellion is the whisper that refuses to fade. What happens when a ghost finally decides to be seen? It began as a whisper in the dark, a single upload bouncing between forgotten networks, encrypted through veterans groups, charity servers, and civilian channels that didn't even know they were part of something bigger. The file was titled Echo. Within hours it spread. Within days it detonated. Names, missions, coordinates, not classified intelligence, truths. Documents proving entire units had been erased, missions rewritten, soldiers branded as unstable and discarded to protect the machinery that fed on them. And in the center of it all, one voice. Hers. The message wasn't dramatic. No manifesto, no vengeance, just a recording of Cara Bishop speaking softly, evenly, into a microphone lit by a single lamp. If you're hearing this, it means I'm already gone. I don't want your pity, I want your memory. They told us silence was loyalty. They were wrong. Silence is surrender. Her voice carried like a confession, calm, unshaken. She didn't name Ghost, didn't name Raynor, didn't need to. The system recognized itself. By the time the Defense Oversight Board traced the source, the file had been copied over 10,000 times. No one could stop it. No one could erase it. And somewhere in the flood of data, Ghost's control began to fracture. He watched it unfold from a dark office in Langley, monitors flickering with chaos. Every terminal was lighting up with fragments of the leak, some authentic, some altered, all unstoppable. Agents scrambled. Calls came in from overseas stations. Someone whispered the word he'd spent years avoiding: exposure. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched the screen where one name kept flashing over and over. Cara Bishop. He closed his eyes. She had done it not by killing, not by running, but by remembering. He whispered under his breath, "You learned too well." The phone on his desk rang. He didn't answer. The second ring cut short, then a pause. Then his personal line lit up, encrypted, one user only. He stared at the number for a long time. Then he picked it up. "Hello, Ghost," she said. "Where are you?" he asked softly. "Close," she replied. "Close enough to see how tired you look." He turned slowly toward the window. The glass reflected nothing but rain, but he knew. Somewhere out there, in the dark beyond the lights, she was watching him. "You always were predictable," he said. "Broadcasting this wasn't your style." "It wasn't supposed to be," she answered. "You forced it. You exposed good people. I exposed what they became." He sighed. "You think this ends anything?" "It ends the silence," she said. "That's enough." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "You can't fix the machine, Bishop." "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but I can make it stutter." He almost smiled, almost. "You could have stayed dead." "So could you." The line went quiet. Finally he said, "What do you want?" "I want you to see what you've built," she said, "and what it cost." "I see it every day." "Then look harder." He could hear her breathing on the line, steady, controlled, familiar. The rhythm he'd trained her into back when she was his best student. "You turned on your own kind," he said softly. "For what?" "For the truth," she said. "The kind that doesn't need clearance codes." "You're not saving anyone." "I'm reminding them they existed." The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Then she said, "I sent something to your private archive." He frowned. "What?" "Your file." He froze. "There's no file on me." "There is now." The line cut. Ghost turned to his terminal. The screen flickered. A new file appeared on his desktop. Ghost, JSON. He opened it. Inside, recordings. His voice, his decisions. The missions he'd rewritten, the soldiers he'd erased. Every lie he'd told, every truth he'd buried. All compiled, documented, and tagged. The same methods he'd used to erase others, now used against him. For a moment he just stared. Then he exhaled, long and low. He whispered to the empty room, "You learned too well." Hours later, a figure stood on the ridge overlooking Langley. Rain soaked through her jacket. The wind howled across the field. Below, the compound glowed faintly, alive with motion and panic. She watched without satisfaction. Just stillness. She'd spent her whole life serving ghosts, following orders from invisible voices, trusting systems that never trusted her back. Now, for the first time, she wasn't a soldier. She was a witness. A car pulled up behind her, headlights off. The door opened, and a man stepped out. Hendricks. He looked older. The scars on his cheek caught the rain. "You really did it," he said. Cara didn't turn. Someone had to. "You made enemies everywhere." "I always had them." He stepped closer. You think this'll change anything?" "No," she said quietly, "but maybe someone will remember it happened." He studied her. "You know they'll come for you." She nodded. "They already are." "Then why are you still here?" She looked at him, rain sliding down her face like tears that never quite fell. "Because I don't run anymore." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a small flash drive. "I saved something," he said. "A copy, yours." She hesitated, then took it. The tiny piece of metal felt heavier than any weapon she'd ever carried. "Keep it safe," he said, "for when they try to erase you again." She nodded once. "They can't erase echoes." By dawn, the rain had stopped. The city below looked calm again, the illusion of order restored. But the files were already out there, mirrors upon mirrors. The truth couldn't be deleted now, only denied. Cara drove until the road ended, until she reached a quiet stretch of coastline. She got out, walked toward the water. The horizon glowed soft orange. Waves lapped against the sand. Seagulls drifted above, uncaring, eternal. She sat down, the flash drive still in her hand. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. She didn't feel haunted. She just felt real. She remembered the faces, Rayner, Ghost, Mendes, every recruit who'd ever doubted her. Every time she'd been underestimated, dismissed, used. And she remembered who she was before all that, before war, before silence, before obedience. A soldier who wanted to make things right. She whispered to the sea, "Maybe that's all I ever was supposed to do." Her phone buzzed once, a message. Unknown number. It read, "They're rewriting again. The system's shifting. We need a name to follow. We need someone to remember." She stared at it for a long time. Then she typed back, "Then remember Cara Bishop." She threw the phone into the waves, watched it sink beneath the surface until it vanished. Hours later, in a dim office, Ghost sat staring at the same ocean feed she once had. He looked tired, old. On his screen, the Echo network still pulsed, alive, growing, uncontrollable. He reached for a pen, scribbled something on a piece of paper. Just one line. "Sometimes silence isn't loyalty, it's fear." He stared at it for a long moment. Then he burned it. Because in his world, words were dangerous. But hers had already escaped. Weeks passed. Somewhere overseas, an encrypted message flickered through the dark web. Sender unknown. Subject, for the ones who never stopped fighting. Attached was a video. The same recording, Cara Bishop's final words. "We are not ghosts. We are the proof that silence breaks when memory survives." It spread again, quietly, relentlessly. Like her. Somewhere, a young recruit watched it between drills, not knowing who she was, only that something in her tone made him sit up straighter. Somewhere, a journalist played it twice, unsure if it was real. Somewhere, a commander saw it and shut his laptop in fear. And somewhere, beyond systems and titles and chains of command, a woman walked across the shore, the wind in her hair, the horizon wide open. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't need to. She had the one thing no one could ever take from her again. Her story. Because in the end, the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a soldier who follows orders. It's a survivor who remembers. And as the waves broke behind her, Cara Bishop whispered the last words she'd ever say on record, a truth born in silence, spoken for everyone who had ever been erased. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Then she walked toward the rising sun and disappeared, not as a ghost, but as an echo.